We've been having some conversations with some people who can't appear on camera, but I can, and I can tell you what they've told us. I can tell you that America's going to change forever. Trump says that Cuba will be ours, and that will happen like maybe this weekend, actually. It's remarkable.
So if you were under the impression that perhaps Donald Trump's bloodlust would be sated by Venezuela and Iran, and that would be it, he'd go back to being the president of peace or whatever, evidently not, because that is right-wing commentator Benny Johnson saying that he's apparently been talking to somebody at the Pentagon. He's now claiming that a US operation to eliminate the Cuban regime, do regime change followed by nation building there, could come as early as this weekend. Now, I don't know if Benny Johnson was supposed to leak that information. Maybe the Pentagon wrongly assumed that he would keep the entire thing on the down low, but he is now speaking out. What do you think, Cenk?
First of all, it's amazing. So the Democrats ignore online media entirely. They don't think that it even exists. They're not aware of it. The Republicans are like, are you a random vlogger somewhere or an influencer? Let us tell you our secret battle plans. Okay, anyways, but I'm glad to know it. And guys, the most important part here is, oh my God, I think we're actually going to attack Cuba. That is mental. That's not the only piece of evidence. John, give him more.
Yeah, and it begs the question, like definitionally, how many wars do you have to be at the same time for it to count as a world war? Well, let's think about that as we go to this next stop, because you don't necessarily have to rely on Benny Johnson, and you shouldn't, because he's a lying grifter, or even his sources in the Pentagon who might or might not exist and might or might not know what they're talking about. Donald Trump has been very clear that he wants to attack Cuba. It's basically been a matter of when rather than if. And here's an example, an interview with CNN's Dana Bash.
He quickly turned to Cuba. He said, without being asked, Cuba is going to fall pretty soon, by the way, but Cuba is going to fall. They want to make a deal so badly. And I asked, how so? He said, they want to make a deal, so I'm going to put Marco over there and we'll see how that works. But we're really focused on this one now, meaning Iran. We've got plenty of time on Cuba.
Yeah, when Donald Trump says they want to make a deal, I no longer have any understanding of what that is supposed to mean. It's I guess, a deal for what the fate of their country is. And again, to be clear, if you thought, oh, finally Cubans will be free to choose their own leader. Nope. Marco Rubio is going to be installed as the viceroy of Cuba or whatever. There is no democracy anywhere, not even feeling like it's here anymore either. And he had an interview with Politico yesterday where he said, Cuba's going to fall. We cut off all oil, all money, or we cut off everything coming in from Venezuela, which was their sole source, and they want to make a deal. And like not just a deal necessarily, the full complete conquest of Cuba seems to be what he's indicating, as you'll see here.
Cuban government is talking with us. They're in a big deal of trouble, as you know. They have no money, they have no anything right now, but they're talking with us. And maybe we'll have a friendly takeover of Cuba. We could very well end up having a friendly takeover of Cuba.
What about the votes?
After many, many years, we've had a lot of years of dealing with Cuba. I've been hearing about Cuba since I'm a little boy, but they're in big trouble.
So weird. But anyway, sources inside the White House have said that Trump seems to think, well, Venezuela was easy, I guess, easy in that they replaced Maduro, just let his vice president take over. Now they've cut like an oil deal or whatever. Screw the Venezuelans. They, again, don't get democracy. And one administration official said the president is feeling like I'm on a roll, like this is working. And then, well, The Atlantic has an expose from Vivian Salama. I'm not gonna read all the quotes because it largely gets into what, Cenk, you've been talking about how he has been convinced by people in the administration that he alone can remake the map. And there is no downside to interventions everywhere simultaneously. And he just needs to do it. And somehow that comes like into his mind or out of his mouth as MAGA rather than just, this just feels like the Bush doctrine. This just feels like this new conservatism. That's literally all it is. They're doing massive interventions all over the globe to set up positive economic deals that benefit the Epstein class here and maybe some elites in that country. I don't understand what the difference is between this and the Bush doctrine.
No, it's actually much worse. So let me be clear about a couple things. So first, just to add to the extra evidence that we're actually going to go to Cuba, Lindsey Graham can't help himself. He gets so excited when he gets briefed about war, and he came screaming out of a briefing, "Cuba's next, Cuba's next," right? And I don't know what else he did to. Anyway, I don't want to even think about it. So now in terms of the Bush doctrine, what do Trump has already attacked 8 countries, 8. He's already done more airstrikes in the first year, and that was in 2025, right? Well, I'm not even counting the war in 26, et cetera, than Biden did in all 4 years, and they called Biden a warmonger.
Yeah.
They called him a warmonger, and they've done more strikes in 1 year than he did in 4.
And they said Harris would bring World War III, that she would launch wars.
Yeah, and here they are launching wars in Iran, Venezuela, Cuba. They just did a joint military operation in Ecuador. Because why not attack all countries at once? They've done bombings in Nigeria and Yemen. We can go on and on, right? So these guys are nuts. So now back to Cuba. Okay. Oh, so one last thing on the Bush doctrine. So Bush was like, okay, hey, we're going to do the Iraq War and Afghanistan, and that was a disaster. But even Bush kept it contained to one area. Like what our military has been worried about and has strategized around for as long as I've been alive is a 2-front war, or two war in 2 different theaters, I should say, okay? And so, hey, can we handle something in Latin America and the Middle East at the same time? Here, these guys are actively going into a thing that we have been worried about our whole lives voluntarily.
Yeah.
Don't forget, Noble Mobile saving you a ton of money. So a lot of people are signing up now and beginning to realize, what the hell, why am I paying so much to Verizon and AT&T? So your bill's only $50 a month, but it can actually be less because they give you money back if you don't use your data. So if you're paying more than $50, there's no reason to not switch. It's crazy not to switch because same phone, same number, same contacts, literally nothing changes. TYT.com/switch, TYT.com/switch. All right, we'll be right back.
Not like, oh, hey, it broke out in China and it broke out in Latin America. We don't have a choice. We're gonna have to fight on 2 different fronts, right? No, they're like, let's create for no reason this type of thing. All right, now guys, Cuba is super weak. Like, don't get me wrong. It's not like I think, oh, if you go into Cuba, they somehow have some amazing military capabilities and they're gonna shoot down everything. No, right? So, but I'm a gambler and I know the odds of something going wrong, okay? And the odds are, if you take enough risk, it is absolutely inevitable, okay? It approaches 100%. So does that mean that we're gonna get involved in a quagmire in Cuba? Probably not, but I don't know, are we gonna go on the ground? That's mental. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't like these regimes. If somehow we magically convince the Cubans through sanctions or blockades or whatever we did, and whatever was bad, but now they go, you guys are right, we're just going to democracy. You don't have to attack us, and we're gonna change our own regime, we're gonna go to democracy instead. Oh, I would love that. Great, wonderful. I would, but usually the world is not magical, right? So what happened in Venezuela was slightly magical. That was actually a rare piece of intelligence work where we convinced the people under Maduro to work with us if we took out Maduro. So now he thinks that's normal. I'm not sure I've ever seen that happen before, right? What happens normally is something goes wrong, and then you get into a little bit of fighting, and then you get into a lot more fighting, and next thing you know, you got troops on the ground in Iran and in Cuba, and all of a sudden Venezuela attacks, and then wait a minute, China goes to take Taiwan, and the whole thing devolves, right? So far, Trump in his life has been the luckiest person, maybe in the history of the world, at least that I've ever seen. He does things wrong time and time again. He does a couple of things right, no question. That's how he got to be president. He's great at grabbing the spotlight, and in politics, that makes all the difference, right? So, but on everything else, he's a clown. So now, my experience is, and we'll see how it plays out, that if you take this many risks, at some point, one of them catches up with you, and then another one, and then another one, and it devolves dramatically. So right now, things are already bad, but they have not devolved dramatically. This is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the next level, when something goes deeply wrong because we took way too many risks. And attacking Cuba would certainly be the most gratuitous, needless risk of all time.
Yeah.
Especially in the middle of a war with Iran.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a related sort of possibility is things go wrong all the time around Trump. He just doesn't necessarily, he's not necessarily the person who pays the consequences for it. Like his COVID response went wrong. He's still alive. Hundreds of thousands of Americans aren't. He wrecks the economy. He's richer than he's ever been. Lots of people lost literally everything and are doing really badly right now. So it's possible that taking Cuba will be relatively easy, but it also, as you says, emboldens China to invade territories. It emboldens Putin to invade another country, and that could go really badly for people whose last name, regrettably, isn't Trump.
Yeah, and by the way, the Russians and the Chinese are loving this because, especially the Russians, they're like, "Oh, you made us deplete our entire military in the Ukraine, and you thought that was cute. All right, great. We can't wait for you to deplete all of your resources and your military in Iran, and now maybe Cuba and Venezuela. All right." I mean, they couldn't have asked for a bigger gift than this.
Yeah.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.